And please introduce yourself and tell me how you or your family ended up in Savannah.
You go first.
Okay. Well, my father's...
Tell your name.
Oh, my name is Helen Cranman.
Okay.
And my father's family were from Austria-Hungary, his father. And his sister brought everybody in the family over, including the grandmother. But my father was born in this country. And his mother's family were from Berlin. And she came over here with her sister. And they met in New York. And my great aunt was in Savannah. And she brought my grandfather and grandmother, the couple, down to Savannah. And my mother's family, my grandfather was from Vienna, and I don't know how he got here. But my mother's mother, they were from Prussia, and they moved to England, and they were born in England. And my grandmother's parents, both parents, came over. And my grandmother was born in England, and so were her sisters. And they came over, and the aunt that brought everybody over had a store in Savannah. And so they were going to Florida, and they got to Savannah, and there was a hurricane, so they decided it was a nice place, and there were a couple of Jewish, synagogues, and so they stayed here. And that was, my father was born in 1891, and he was born in Savannah, so that was before then.
That's an amazing story. So if it wasn't for a hurricane, you might be a Floridian now, right?
Right. And my father was born in 1985 in Savannah.
So you spent your whole life in Savannah. What was it like growing up Jewish in Savannah?
I found it fine. I mean, my parents were married at the Mikveh Israel, and we grew up in the Mikveh Israel, and I spent, when I wasn't at the JEA or at the Mikveh Israel, we lived in the community, and we walked around. My father built a house in Ardsley Park, which was unheard of, the year before I was born. And then we moved all over town for my sister's health and moved back there eventually. But we used to live near the baseball park on Grayson Stadium, and he didn't have any little boys, so he used to take me. We used to walk to Grayson Stadium.
So you're a baseball fan?
Yes.
Tell me about the teams you saw. See anyone famous?
Well, Jake Levy, I don't know if you know who Jake Levy is, but Jake Levy played it was the Savannah Indians. And one time the national teams used to come and play with the local teams. So I saw Leo DeRocha, and there was one, I can't think of his name, I'm getting old. The guy whose leg was hurt. Do you remember who he was?
Who's?
The guy that got his leg hurt.
Oh, Lou Brissy.
Lou Brissy, and he went into the National. And
Major.
yeah,
Went into the Major League.
yeah.
Let me kind of bring this to a Jewish context.
Well, Jake Levy was Jewish.
Jake Levy was Jewish, and he played ball. Let me bring this to a Jewish context. A lot of times, girls were not educated in those years, and a lot of times, and education in general was not necessarily offered to girls, and certainly sports. This is certainly before Title IX. So tell me a little bit about your family environment and the kinds of opportunities that you had, and whether or not some of those opportunities came because you just happened to be daddy's sweet little girl, or were some of them because of a sense of Jewish tradition?
Well, I went to kindergarten at the old JEA, and we, it was, and we, learned everything. And there's a prism hanging up in the light in the window, and so we learned our colors like that. And we got taught all kinds of things, and we learned all the Jewish holidays and celebrated them, and it was enjoyable. Then I went to a school, the regular public school, and actually, where I lived at the time, there were no other Jewish girls in the class, and it was never any ugliness, never unkindness. They didn't even, they didn't even ever say anything. And to this day, some of my non-Jewish friends are still very close to me.
What would happen when a Jewish holiday would conflict with the school schedule? Was there any problem for you to get out of school?
Never. No.
Was there ever any discussion from people who didn't know anything about Jewish tradition as to why you were out?
Yeah, and we told them.
They wanted to convert.
Yeah, they did, because we got to celebrate all of the Jewish holidays, and they didn't get to celebrate them, and so they did.
In your household, therefore, you as a young woman, you were encouraged to get a good education? Were you encouraged to increase that education?
Yes, and afterwards, and when I graduated from high school, it was during the war, and I was supposed to go with two of my friends to nursing school. But my family moved to California and in 1943. And when I got there, the only UCLA was all taken by the Army. Anyway, it was too much for me, but so I went to a small school in Beverly Hills, and called Woodbury College, and I took a business course. And when I was in it about 4 months, my uncles called and said, come to the, they had a theatrical agency, and I went up to the theatrical agency. And how I became the secretary for my uncle, who was one of the biggest theatrical agents in Hollywood. And I used to take dictation, type his letters 3 times, that kind of thing.
I'm going to pull you back to Savannah a little bit, because I happen to know that you have a Girl Scout history, and although we've spoken about that before, very briefly, would you tell me something about being a Jewish girl in a Girl Scout troop?
Yes, well, I went to the Girl Scout camp as a counselor, and my sister went, and all her friends went, and I was a counselor, in the Girl Scout camp. So one year, when I was about 16 or 17, when I got out, one of the ladies said, I'm going to be a leader for some underprivileged girls down on Park Avenue. Would you come and be my assistant? And I said, of course. So I went, and the girl, it was down on Park Avenue, so I used to have to take the bus, because I didn't have a car, and nobody, so I took the bus, and I went down there, and we met every week, and we met in the basement on one of those houses on Park Avenue. And it was so long ago, the only heat we had was coal in a grate, and that was our heat. And we had a little flag this big on the desk, and we said the Girl Scout code, and we, said
The pledge.
The Pledge of Allegiance. And when I would come in, they'd be throwing they were girls about 13, 14, they'd be throwing their cigarettes and talking about their boyfriends. And I thought, they're not going to be interested in how to tie a knot. So what I did was I taught them how to set the table, and I taught them how to wash their hair and what to do with it, and how to do their fingernails. And I showed them the different kinds of money, what they were. And I took them over to the Y, and we went swimming over there. And then one weekend in the spring, they had the Girl Scout camp open, and they had the kitchen open. So I got everybody, and I got uniforms. I got everybody to donate uniforms. And so I got everybody to pack a bag, and my mother and my father filled up the cars and everything. And we rode down to the camp, and we stayed to the camp for the weekend. And of course, there was always one little girl that nobody wanted to stay with. So I said, okay, you can stay with me. So that was a big deal. So you want me to go keep telling you?
Well, what I'd like to know is, clearly it was a wonderful mitzvah project that it sounds like you got a lot of people involved with. Did you know at the time, or did you think that it connected in any way to things that you learned through your Jewish tradition, or it was just the Girl Scout way?
Well, everything I did was based on the Jewish religion. To me, that's the way I think I live. I mean, I'm not as religious as many people. I don't go to synagogue as much, all that kind of business. But I would give my life if I had to. And there's nothing more important to me than being Jewish, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's gonna make me cry.
Of all the things that you learned in school, in religious school, from your parents, from the people that mentored you, what are the Jewish tenets that are most important to you that you've tried to pass on to your children and to your grandchildren?
Well,
and I guess great-grandchildren.
yeah. And I have to say that they are wonderful. And then Daddy had a lot to do with that. But the truth of the matter is, I mean, they are all so proud of their daddy, and of me too, but more of him. And the way we live, and they were just taught to be that way and to be Jewish. And a lot of people fussed at me because a couple of my children in the family married people who are not Jewish, but they all converted to Judaism, and so that's the way.
You mentioned that when you were younger, you did a lot of activities with the JEA.
Oh, yes.
Okay. However, I've spoken to people from different eras, and they said that early on, that people at Mikveh Israel were not necessarily welcomed at Jewish activities at the JEA. Did you find that to be true?
I never heard such a thing. And my father's family went to the B.B. Jacob. And my mother, she came here when she was about 6 or 7 years old. But she grew up even though we went to the temple, she grew up with a lot of the people that went to the B.B. Jacob too. So we were mixed, we were mixed with everybody. And I went to kindergarten there. I went to Sunday school there. I went to gym there. I went to dancing there. I went to drama there and was in a play. There just isn't anything that I didn't do there. I belonged to BB, well, it was AZA Girls or something. And
we'll come back to that discussion,
Okay.
if that's all right. And let me give you a turn. And let's talk a little bit about, first of all, introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about who your family your family, the kinds of occupations they had, what brought them to this country, what brought them to Savannah.
My name is Herman Cranman. My middle name is Lewis, Lewis, after Judge Lewis, who was a great friend of my father. I grew up, spent all my life in Savannah, except for the 2 times that I was in the Army. Even the second time in the Army, I was in Savannah for that duration of the Korean War until I got out. My family, my father's family and my mother's family were in Savannah, and that's pretty much all I know about them. I heard stories about my father's family that they both came from both families came from southern Russia or the northern part of the Balkan countries. I'm not quite sure where. And I believe they came, I don't know, 5 or 10 years before, probably 10 or 15 years before the 20th century began. So it was in the late 1800s. They were both ultra conservative with their religion. They were both very religious, both families. And my father was not, though. He grew up probably as a liberal Jew. And mother didn't care too much about a lot of religions. And she went along with him. And my father started business. He quit school quite early. I think he said the 3rd grade, but I think it was probably later than that. And he went to work. His father told him if he wasn't going to go to school, he had to go to work. And so he got a job as an office boy at an insurance agency down on Bay Street. And one of his customers manufactured cigars. And he would go there frequently, and he got to be friendly with the foreman. And the foreman would give him cigars that were seconds, that were not good enough to get in. And he used to ride a bicycle to go to the various policyholders. And he was probably the only office boy who smoked a cigar and rode a bicycle. He started smoking cigars very early, and he continued until he died, which I think is around 90-some odd years. And my mother and father, they had me, and I grew up as a single child for a while until my brother Alvin came along. And we lived on, we were not rich. I remember the cars that they had. My father was, as a matter of fact, my father continued from his office boy status to a fledgling agent, insurance agent, with the firm that he was with, until such time as, and they had a rule that anybody who asked for a raise would get fired automatically in that agency. You couldn't ask for a raise without getting fired. And my father had me then, and he was starving to death with and he was pretty active in the insurance agency business by that time. And he asked for a raise, and he got fired. So he went in business for himself. I think he borrowed a few $100s from Judge Lewis.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm named after. And he went from there right on up. He was in business until he retired. I guess he was in his 70s or 80s when he retired. And that's when my son and I, Paul was our oldest son, and I joined the agency first. And Alvin was also my brother, my younger brother, was there. But he cared less for the insurance agency, and he didn't quite make it with it. But my education started at the Waters Avenue Street School, and at kindergarten, and maybe the first or second grade. And went over to the 49th Charles Ellis School, 49th Street. We moved from Anderson. We lived on Anderson Street, and right by Waters Avenue. And we moved to 49th Street, which is just across the street from where they built the Savannah High School, which is now been evacuated or terminated as a high school. But it was there was the grand, glorious Savannah High School at the time it was built.
Did most of the Jewish children go to public school?
All
Have
of
your-
them.
Oh, yes.
I don't remember any of them taking a Jewish or religious schooling or education.
Was your educational experience similar to your wife's? Your wife, did you not have any problems with clubs or
There was a little,
some tension?
there was one or two boys that I had to fight because of my religion. But as a whole, it was nothing discriminatory too much.
Were you able to join all the clubs you wanted or play the sports you wanted to?
I joined the
AZ.
AZA. That was my only club.
So that's a Jewish club, though.
Right, and there was a Boy Scout, and there was a Jewish Scout troop. But scouting I wasn't too impressed with scouting. But the Jewish Alliance, during my teenage years, I grew up there, and they had a little gym up on the second floor. And there was softball and basketball there. And I played a lot of that type of sports as I grew up. And high school, I went to 35th Street School. And matter of fact, on Anderson Street, it's where Helen and I met. But I didn't really realize that she was the one for me until a long time later.
We met on Anderson Street. He moved across the street from me, and I went and sat on his doorstep. And he wouldn't come up and play with me. But
I didn't play with girls in those days. But in any event, we progressed along, and I didn't recognize who she was at all when I met her in junior high, which was the old Richard Arnold School on Bull Street. And she had filled out pretty good at that time, and I became a little more enthused with the female sex. And I thought they had at the school, they had a tea dance, an afternoon dance. And I didn't know anything about dancing, but I thought I could pick it up pretty easy. You just move around the floor and hold the female tight. And so I invited on our first date to go to the tea dance, and we caught the bus. We were about 14 and 13, something like that. Couldn't drive. I was too young to drive. And we went to the dance, and I found out I couldn't dance. And I became very embarrassed. Very embarrassed. And she was trying to smooth over the embarrassment that I felt. But I swore off of all dances and dates, not in front of her, but mentally. I threw off all of that until I could drive or dance, one or the other. And that was the last time I saw her until I dated her later on in high school.
Now, your father went to the B.B. Jacob initially.
Yeah, his family.
And his family. And they allowed you to date at 14?
well, it was just
That was
during the
after
day.
that.
Yeah, I was about 13 or 14, and it was just during the day. And we rode the bus to the school, and then we came
There were a
back.
lot of kids there at the school that was supervised.
Now, I would assume that there was certainly nothing like a bat mitzvah for girls, but there would
No.
have been a bar mitzvah for you, and there might have been confirmation, so you tell me about those.
I was bat mitzvah at the
At the
Temple
temple.
of Israel.
You bar
I think
mitzvah?
I
Mikveh
was
Israel?
probably one of the first, if
For
not the
people.
first, to be bar mitzvah there.
Really? Do you remember what year that was?
When I was 13.
Okay.
It was 37, I think. That's right. I was born in 24.
Well, he's not telling you.
No, not. It's 13. Wait a minute. Well, I forget what time. How old are you when you?
13.
13. 12 sometimes for a girl.
So it's about 35, 1935, something like that.
Well, make him tell you about being shot down. That's
Well, I
something.
haven't got.
Well, we haven't quite got to the war years yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I want to hit a little bit more about being educated in having your Jewish education through. So for both of you, if it was Mikveh
I
Israel.
learned enough. I could read Hebrew, and I learned enough to be bar mitzvah at the temple, which is.
Well, who was the rabbi at the time?
Rabbi Solomon.
Yeah.
And what was it a big deal that he was allowing a bar mitzvah?
Yeah.
Do
Well,
you
I don't know how it was in the community, but we had a lot of people that were there when I was bar mitzvah.
Do you remember
And my
then the
father
kinds of
and
things you had to
mother had a
learn?
party afterwards. That's about all I remember from the time.
So you were friends with maybe AJ at the time?
A.J. Cohen.
Yeah.
I became friends with him when I went to Camp Osceola a year or two later. He was my counselor at the camp. Slept in the same hut that me and several other boys were in. That was a nice occasion. Spent a month or two there.
Did you find yourselves, and this is a question for both of you, did you find yourselves gravitating at all to members of the Jewish community in terms of like, someone said that it was almost like a secret club, that you felt better when you got someplace secular if you saw another Jew there. Did you ever feel that way? Or it really was not in your
Yeah, I think
radar?
I felt more comfortable.
You always feel better with Jewish people. To me, we did, you know. But in this community, tell them where you went to high school.
I went to Savannah High.
Savannah High.
You went to Benedictine.
Well, then I was a poor student. I was really not interested too much in education. And I just got to the point one year that I would maybe a week after school started, I was just so terribly upset with the school that I decided I'd like to go to BC, Benedictine. And so I transferred over. My parents said, "Oh, okay."
Now, there were other Jewish children going there as well, because I just spoke to two
I
today.
had an uncle that
Yeah.
went there, but he's 6 years older than me.
So tell me about the Jewish experience in a Catholic school.
Well, it was fine. I mean, we had we didn't have any of our services or anything, but their services, we were excused from them. When they went to church, we didn't go, but we were doing something else. But it was mostly a military school. It was a military school of sorts for high school kids. And it was better. Than one poor experience that I had was in German. That was like a language course. I got there about 2 weeks after the school had already started, and the teachers were generally what they call them, brothers or
Yeah.
things. And the teacher was teaching the class German, and I was not getting it. Because I didn't get the first part of it. And I complained to him. He said, "Don't worry about it, she'll catch up with it." Well, I was always 2 weeks behind in that class, and I got already a low mark. I usually did enough to pass a subject, but not German. I thought, well, I'll never need it. But was that wrong?
So I know that leads to the war years, but before I get there, tell me about confirmation.
Confirmation? I just had a bar mitzvah. I didn't have a confirmation.
Didn't have a confirmation, and it wasn't required of you.
No.
You were
I
confirmed
did go to Sunday school
at Mikveh Israel?
Mikveh Israel, yeah. Or
You were
Sabbath school,
you were
they call it.
confirmed, or you were on the chain?
I went to
Why?
I went to Sabbath school. We
That's
at the McPhail for
Right.
many years,
Yeah,
and then I went to Sunday school.
That was another way where we kind of met. We had a ride in my
Yeah,
aunt's car,
yeah.
back and forth, Sunday school.
His-
I didn't know her at that time too much.
When I went to the JEA for Sunday school, his aunt was my teacher, and she used to take me home to his grandmother's, and he used to eat Sunday dinner at his grandmother's, and
We ate
not too
dinner
far-
there at my grandmother's
not too far
house
away.
every Sunday,
But
or Saturday, whenever it was.
but we moved to California. Actually, my family.
Of course. So it was during those years.
Yeah,
Would have
and
been.
my family also changed from the McPhail to the neighborhood, and but anyway.
Do you know? Do you remember a particular reason?
They just were more. That's where our family was, and we were just closer. My grandparents, my grandmother died, and my aunt got married, moved away, and my uncle moved away, and all my family moved away, except my grandfather and grandmother and one aunt. So
So it was. Let me go back to, and this is just for you. And I want to talk a little bit about the war years. Now, this project, unlike the Jewish war veterans I did, is really not about that, but it is about leadership and taking a role, and how Jews participate in the secular community as much as it is about our own traditions. So, would you briefly tell me about your war years? And I guess since you were a Benedictine, did that prepare you for
Yes,
what
it
you would
did.
encounter? So tell me a little bit.
It gave me every day at Benedictine we would march down Bull Street. School was on Bull and 34th Street, I believe, at that time. We'd march down Bull Street, go to the Forsyth Park, and practice drills in the park until the drill period was over, and we'd march back to the school. And it was with a uniform, and it was with a gun. I think I can't forget the name of the gun, but it was a hand-operated gun. It wasn't automatic like they have today. But in any event, I learned just how to drill a platoon of fellas. And I learned to march, and that helped me when I was in basic training. And everybody that goes into the Army, they didn't have an Air Force at the time, but it was the Army Air Corps. Everybody that goes into the Army had to learn to drill, and being experienced, I was turned over, that sergeant in charge turned over the platoon to me, and he went and got a Coke, I think, while I was drilling them. That was where I was, just in the drilling part is what I became.
Was there any difference in the conscription of the Army, the Navy, whatever, the military service, for Jewish children? Or was everyone equally drafted?
Everybody was the same.
And was there a difference in placement because of what was going on in Germany at the time, that Jewish officers or no? So was there...
You had an equal chance in the Army, no matter what your name was or what your religion was.
All right. Were your parents and your family aware of how Jews were being persecuted? Did they worry about you, not because, it was a patriotic thing to be in the Army, but that there was something special maybe about being a Jew in Germany?
Well, it was special for me, and I think it was for them too, but one person cannot, change the world without some power.
Now, you said that you really needed your German when you went into the war.
I ended up as a Navy. I enlisted in the aviation cadet program, and I had to pass a high school equivalency test to get in, because I got in after my third year of high school. I didn't take my senior year, and I passed it. And I was, after several months, they called me to come to aviation cadet school, and that was a lot of like basic training. That was our basic training. And after that, they classified you. While we were in basic, they classified. They had 4 different, well, they had lots of positions on airplanes, but a bomber had a pilot, a co-pilot, a navigator, and a bomber there. They were all commissioned officers. And then they had a master sergeant who was an engineer, and a radio operator who was a sergeant. Everybody was a non-com on the crew, and an enlisted crew, and they had several gunners. The total of 10 people flew on that airplane. And I wanted to, it was really my desire to do something in the European theater because of the Hitler situation in Europe. And they classified me as a bombardier. And I was disappointed. I wanted to be a fighter pilot, like every kid in the world wanted to be a fighter pilot. And then I started thinking, well, you know, this will give me the opportunity, if I can get sent to Europe, to drop bombs on Hitler. And I felt really good about it. And so that's what I did. I became a bombardier. I finished the course, became a second lieutenant in September of '43. And came home on leave. We were going together before I went into the Army. By then, we'd come to an agreement. We kind of liked each other. But she dated not just me, she dated anybody that.
Did you ever date people that weren't Jewish?
Yes.
And that was allowed in your family?
So did I.
You did as well. Was there was no taboo on
No.
who you were with?
But I actually did not do it until the war. Before that, I did not date non-Jewish boys. I only dated Jewish boys. But then when the war came, we had we invited some of them to come to our houses, and a lot of them were not Jewish then. And I went out with some of them, but there was never really, I mean, there was nothing real serious.
I dated Jewish girls while I was in Savannah until I got in the Army. And then in Big Spring, Texas, they were not Jewish girls. I don't think they.
Now I hear the story from someone else about getting the kosher salami sent.
I didn't care about it.
You didn't care. All right.
You know, we felt that we were Jews, and we felt it from our heart, not necessarily our head. We were going to do it, and we didn't go through the ritualistic part of the Jewish religions too very much. Matter of fact, I don't understand it today why we do certain things that the rabbi can explain, but I just don't necessarily agree with it.
What was it like when you realized what Hitler really was doing? So many people say they didn't know, but you were there.
I was not there. I learned here what he was doing before, while I was in the Army, and before. That was one of the reasons that I joined the Air Force. There was nobody was holding the news back. We learned that newspapers expressed some kind of anti-Semitic activity that was going on in Germany all the time.
Did that impact the community? Did you see your parents talk about it?
Yeah,
The people that you,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
as a community, did they try and do anything to help?
There was
Oh, yeah.
There was a refugee boat that came here from Europe, full of Jews, and stopped in several places, and the countries wouldn't let them off. They came to Florida, and Roosevelt, who was a liberal president at the time, said you can't get off here. Only 150 or 200 people that were there, and they sent them back to Europe, and they got off, and they all went to concentration camp. And you know what happened from there?
Was there an outrage in Savannah? Was there? I know there wasn't the
No.
Federation then. I don't think it was
Things
United
things
Jewish
were-
Distribution Committee.
Things were segregated to an extent in this country. The blacks and the whites that were separated. especially in the South. And the Jews were segregated from the non-Jews to some degree. We went to school together, and we went to maybe some social functions together, but we didn't necessarily date anybody out of the religion.
Did this impact you when you were in business? The fact that you were networking with other Jewish people in insurance, but how was it when you went to solicit somebody who
It was
wasn't
a
Jewish?
hindrance. It was a definite hindrance. I was not in the right church sometimes, and I felt that I was not too welcome to come in, although I thought I could do a better job than what they were doing. But it didn't make any difference to the person buying the insurance.
So you were of an impressionable age when you moved to California and then you moved back here. What are some of the differences you found between living in some place like California and then all of a sudden being a Southern girl again?
Well, it was unbelievable. It really was.
In what way, please?
Well, my father's brother had his own studio. And I used to, my father,
She's talking movies, too.
Movie studio.
yeah, well, anyway, and I went to this college and I learned, they decided, the whole family, I was not used to this. I had this whole family there and everybody would come over and talk and decide what was going to do what. And they didn't let you in the studio because that was dangerous. But I learned how to write shorthand and type and everything. And my uncle, who I said they have a theatrical agency up on the Sunset Strip. So they said, here, you got a job. And I went, I had my own office, and I learned how to operate the switchboard.
Was that true of the women in the South when you moved back to Savannah? That they were allowed
Yeah.
to have that kind of power
No,
and
not too
situations?
much, but it took a while for it to get better, But yes, because they had women up at Cranman Insurance. All the people that were there, they had all these girls.
We didn't have anybody except my father and I that was,
And all the
my
rest.
father was partners with a non-Jew.
Yeah.
At the time, I came back, and then they said split business, and I became his.
But Helen is talking about women working for Cranman Insurance.
Right, there was no Jews that were out. There was one Jewish person that worked there while out that I knew of, and that was all. The rest of them were non-Jews.
So, did the women's movement impact your business or your life here in Savannah?
The
No.
women's movement. What do you mean by that?
The feminist movement in the 70s, women wanting to improve their occupational opportunities. What about civil rights? Did that impact your business?
Well,
It didn't
there.
impact our business, but it impacted the city.
Well, people, they had, you talk about the marches and things. Well, the lady that worked for me, I was raised by black women. And there were all African, I don't know the term. I told somebody Oriental the other day, my son-in-law, my grandson said, well, you should say Asian grandma. I said, okay. Well, anyway, but the black people, as I said, they just raised us. And this girl that worked for me, the phone rang, it was for her, and she picked her up, and she said, Mama, I don't care if they are paying him $5 a week. That's just trouble, and you go get him and don't let him march. Hung up the phone. I said, he's marching. She says, yeah, Miss Cranman, they pay him $5 a day. We don't believe in any of that stuff. And that's just the way it was. That there were any of the people that caused problems with the blacks. It was because people came in from our community, not that they didn't want better ways, and not that we didn't want better ways for everybody, but this was all there before we came, you know.
I have really enjoyed this, but we're almost at 45 minutes, and I told you
Okay.
I'd keep it to that. So I want to have just a few parting shots, if that's okay. I would like you to think about your earliest Jewish memory. I want to bring it back to that, and the way it made you feel. And if you could translate that into, again, words of wisdom that you want to pass on to the next generation, what is it? What is that essence of Judaism that you would want them to pass on to their children? And I'll take an answer from both of you.
You want to speak first?
Well, I really didn't have any thoughts about it as I was in my 20s. When it was really brought home to me personally was when the day that I was shot down and captured by the Hungarians. The first question they asked me, and I couldn't understand Hungarian, but I understood what they were saying, was whether or not I was a Jew, and they was pointing pitchforks, and I was standing there by myself amongst 4 or 5 Hungarians. And I changed my religion then, that moment, and said, no, I was not. That, I think, saved my life. I don't think I would have been there much longer by admitting that I was a Jew. Another thing that I would like to talk about was that I had a mezuzah each day that I flew on my dog tags, and I wore it under my shirt with my dog tags, and it was firmly attached. And the day that I jumped out of the airplane and the parachute landed, and I was hiding out from these people before they caught me, I thought I better do something with that mezuzah, even though the dog tags have Hebrew on it.
For Jew.
So I pulled up dog tags out, and no mezuzah. It was gone. I don't know. I searched all over. I was laying there in some grass, high grass, and they couldn't see me. But everything I'd searched, and it was gone. I don't know how it disappeared. And that is, I thought God was with me at the time. And I think that probably helped a little bit through the whole 10 months that I was there. But the people in our camp knew I was Jewish, the Americans. And I don't think it made any difference. It's just like the Army. We were there as American POWs, and we had a military rule. We had a major that was the head of our compound, our building, barracks, and we had a supervisor over him. There was a colonel, I think, and then over that, all the prison camps, there was a brigadier general. But and the Germans one day said that they wanted to, they had orders to find out how many Jews were in camp, and our general said that the American Army doesn't keep track of that. We don't know. And that was the last I heard.
But
But there were some enlisted camps where that same thing happened, and they didn't have officers over them. They had non-coms officer, and they voted them. You know, somebody with popularity could become the head of the camp. And some did turn the Jews in, and they went into concentration camps. Now I forgot, after all of that, I forgot what I was supposed to do. Tell me what you...
I think you kind of summed it up as that maybe religion is more about what you know about yourself than what other people need to know about you. And how does that translate then to how you pass those thoughts and feelings onto your grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Well, I didn't impress neither one of us, and drove it home so much that they were Jew and it came above everybody else, or everything else. They knew they were Jewish. They went to synagogue.
And we celebrated our holiday.
And we celebrated the holidays as much as we could. And that was it. And they went to college and found their mates, and some were Jewish and some were not.
How many years have you been together? You've been married?
Us, we were married in 44,
45.
that's right.
69 years. But we have been friends, well, he doesn't remember.
I was
I
friendly
used to
since
sit on his doorstep.
I was friendly then. But I just didn't remember you.
See,
Thank you so very much. I think it was a lovely interview. Is there anything I didn't ask that you wanted to answer?
no, I can't think of it.
Thank you for
You did very
participating.
well, thank you.
Thank you.